My wife announced at our promotion celebration dinner. I slept with your boss to make sure you didn't get the job. I just nodded, smirked, and said, then why did I get the promotion? 3 weeks later, she was fired from her own job for something she didn't see coming. During a fancy dinner to celebrate my promotion, my wife dropped an explosive. She slept with my boss to hamper my chances. I already knew. I still got promoted. She got fired 3 weeks later because of something unrelated, but also because I tipped off her company. I haven't said a word about it until now. So, I guess congratulations are in order, she said, tilting her wine glass, a faint smirk pulling at the corner of her lips. I nodded, chewing a piece of ribeye. Guess so. She took a slow sip, then leaned forward just slightly, lowering her voice but never breaking eye contact. I slept with Mason, she said. Your boss. Thought maybe it'd make sure you didn't get the job. I paused, set my fork down gently, and looked at her, really looked at her. Then I smiled. Then why did I get the promotion? That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, a lot has changed. You don't walk into a marriage thinking it'll collapse in slow motion one day. But looking back, I think there were signs. I'm Harlan. I'm 39, living in Chicago, and I've been in commercial real estate for nearly 15 years. The last few years, I've been gunning for a senior partner role at my firm. It was cutthroat. The kind of position you don't just get by working hard. You get it by being visible, by playing the office politics game just right. And, for better or worse, I played it well enough to get noticed. My wife, Sierra, 37, worked in public relations for a growing tech firm in the West Loop. She's sharp, good-looking, always the one in the room who knows exactly what to say and when to say it. We'd been together since our early 30s. Got married 2 years in. Our friends always saw us as the balanced couple, me more grounded, her more intense. It worked for a while. Things had started to shift maybe a year before all of this. She became more distant. Not in an obvious way. There were still dinners out, weekend getaways, night out. But there was a coldness underneath. Her compliments felt like backhanded jabs. Her silences started lasting longer. I chalked it up to stress. Both of us had demanding jobs. Maybe we were just in a rut. But then came the day I walked into Mason's office unexpectedly. I was dropping off a finalized proposal late in the afternoon. I wasn't supposed to be there. It had been emailed out, but I preferred handing it off personally when it mattered. I opened the door and froze. Sierra was there, laughing, sitting on the edge of Mason's desk. They didn't touch. Nothing obvious. But it was the vibe. Too casual. Too familiar. She looked surprised to see me. Said she was just in the area and thought she'd surprise me. Mason gave some vague comment about how lucky I was. The whole thing made my skin crawl. I didn't say anything. Not then. But I started paying attention. I don't think Sierra thought I was the kind of man who would investigate her. I'd never snooped through her phone, never questioned her late nights or last-minute business dinners. I think that gave her confidence, false confidence. She thought she could do what she wanted, and I'd never notice. And even if I did, what would I do about it? So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired someone. A guy named Renner, a private investigator referred to me by a former client. I gave him the names, the dates, her work schedule. I told him to follow the threads. What he came back with, 2 weeks later, was confirmation. Photos, hotel receipts, 1 weekend trip to Milwaukee under different names. Not a ton of evidence, but enough. It was a punch to the gut, but also validating in a weird way. I wasn't crazy. The coldness, the subtle contempt in her tone, the late-night texts she said were work, they were all real. What surprised me wasn't that she'd cheated. It was why. I thought she was bored. Or maybe she and Mason had a moment of mutual attraction, something stupid and reckless. But the night of the promotion dinner, my moment to celebrate, she turned it into something else. A power play. A confession. I slept with your boss, she said, to make sure you didn't get the job. Her face didn't have guilt. It was satisfying. Like she thought this was her moment to ruin me. But I'd already known. And I'd already won. Mason still gave me the promotion. Whether it was because he felt guilty or because he realized I was simply better for the job, I don't know. And I don't care. What mattered was that her plan didn't work. She didn't know I knew. She didn't know I'd already started preparing my exit. And she definitely didn't know what else I had in motion. I had Renner look into her professional life too. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I'd started wondering how far her moral flexibility went. She liked power. She liked control. And in PR, that kind of ambition sometimes takes shortcuts. What we found, it wasn't criminal, but it was definitely unethical. She'd been leaking embargoed info, sensitive product details from her company, to a tech journalist she was close to. It helped boost coverage for her clients, which made her look like a miracle worker. I have no idea how long it had been going on, but she was smart about it. Emails from a private account, burner numbers. I compiled the info, sent an anonymous tip to her company's legal department. 3 weeks later, they fired her. No drama, no news story, just an internal message about a compliance breach and a quiet departure. She came home that day stunned. She didn't know how they found out. Said it must have been a jealous coworker. I just listened. I haven't confronted her. Not yet. After her firing, Sierra was different. Not in the "I've learned my lesson" kind of way. More like a balloon slowly deflating. Her sharpness dulled. The fire she carried in every conversation, the one that used to light up a room or cut me down with surgical precision, was flickering. She started spending more time in bed, staring at her phone, watching TV she never used to care about. A few of our mutual friends reached out to me privately. "Is she okay?" they'd ask. She seemed off at brunch. I told them she was just taking time to recalibrate. Work had been rough. I didn't mention the real reason. I still haven't told anyone the full story. Not my friends. Not my family. Not even my therapist, though I have a session booked. I guess I'm saving it for the right moment. Or maybe I'm waiting to see how it all plays out before I unload. Some nights, she'll say things like, "Do you ever think we got too comfortable?" Or, "I miss who we used to be." I nod. Or I say something vague like, "Yeah, life's been heavy." I don't lie, but I don't engage either. There's no point. I've learned something important these past few months. People don't cheat because they're unhappy. They cheat because they think they can get away with it. And in Sierra's case, she did more than cheat. She tried to pull strings behind my back. Tried to manipulate my life's biggest opportunity because she didn't think I could do it on my own. Or worse, because she didn't want me to succeed. That's the part that still hits me like a freight train at 2 a.m. when the condo is quiet and the city noise hums in the distance. She didn't just betray me passionately. She hampered me. Why? Jealousy? Fear I'd outgrow her? Some twisted form of control? I don't know. And the scary thing is, I don't think she really knows either. She hasn't asked why I didn't react more at dinner. She probably thinks I was too shocked to process it. Maybe she expected a screaming match, some righteous display of masculinity. Or for me to storm out, leave her sitting there with her $1,000 handbag and untouched creme brulee. But all I did was smile. And that smile, that's what's been haunting her, I think. She's brought it up a few times. That night, she said once, as we brush our teeth side by side, "You smiled when I told you. Like it didn't bother you." Why? I rinsed my mouth. Looked at her reflection in the mirror. Shrugged. I guess I just wasn't surprised. She watched me for a few seconds, like she wanted to say more, but didn't. That's been our whole relationship lately. Half-started conversations, unfinished thoughts. A pile of emotions rotting under the surface, waiting for one of us to crack. I've started packing small things. Nothing obvious. Some keepsakes from my office, an old watch my dad gave me, a few important documents I prefer she doesn't have access to. I've scanned everything. Backed it up. Quiet prep. I don't think she suspects anything. Not yet. Or maybe she does, and she's too tired to fight it. We're still technically a married couple, sharing a bed, walking Lloyd together on Sundays, having dinner like everything's fine. But there's a cold war between us now. No explosives, just silence. And that silence is louder than any screaming match we've ever had. Lately, I've been replaying the last few years of our marriage in my head. All the little moments I brushed off. The client dinners she never wanted to talk about. The way she'd subtly put me down when I talked about work. How she always made my accomplishments feel smaller. "That's great, babe, but don't get too comfortable." Or, "Well, let's see if it actually sticks." I thought it was just her way of pushing me. Being practical. Keeping me grounded. But now I see it for what it was, erosion. A slow, quiet dismantling of my confidence, piece by piece. And here's the thing that eats at me the most. She never apologized. Not once. Not for sleeping with Mason. Not for trying to manipulate the outcome of my career. Not for making me feel like I was always one step behind, even when I was running full speed. Instead, she's trying to carry on like nothing happened. Like the slate's been wiped clean. But I remember. I remember everything. And I'm not sure how much longer I can stay in this house. In this limbo, pretending we're still something that can be fixed. A few days ago, I found her in the kitchen, sipping tea at 3 in the morning. Lights off. Just the glow of the refrigerator humming behind her. She didn't say anything at first when I walked in. Just stared into the dark like she'd been waiting for something. Or someone. "You couldn't sleep either?" I asked, not because I cared about the answer, but because I needed to say something. She nodded. Then, after a beat, "Do you think we're too broken to fix?" It wasn't even a question that startled me. It was how she said it. Like she knew we were broken. Like she'd finally admitted it to herself. I didn't answer. I just opened the cabinet, grabbed a glass of water, and stood there, waiting for her to fill the silence again. She didn't. She just kept staring at the floor, sipping that damn tea. She'd been off since the firing. But in recent days, I started seeing cracks. Real ones. Not just the surface-level disorientation of someone who lost their job, but the quiet unraveling of a person who built their identity on control, now realizing the walls are caving in. I started catching her spacing out mid-sentence. Her calls with friends became shorter or non-existent. She stopped going to Pilates. She hadn't logged into LinkedIn once. Not even to pretend she was networking. And that woman loved pretending to be busy. She still hadn't connected the dots, hadn't even considered that her firing might have come from me. I don't think it's even crossed her mind. That's the kind of hubris she carries. The belief that even if she'd done something wrong, no one would dare expose her. But I did. And watching her spiral, not in a celebratory way, but in this heavy, complicated, human way, it hit me. I don't think she's ever actually sat with consequences before. Not like this. Not without spinning them, managing them, dressing them up in PR-friendly narratives. Sierra always controlled the story. Until now. Some mornings, I still wake up before the sun. The city's still quiet then. Lloyd's usually curled up at my feet. I'll sit on the edge of the bed, drink coffee from the chipped navy pier mug I've had for years, and just stare out at the skyline. It's become a ritual, my little pocket of peace. Because as much as I hate to admit it, this whole thing has made me feel again, something I didn't even realize I'd numbed out in our marriage. I feel clarity. I feel anger. I feel grief. And sometimes, I even feel a strange, uncomfortable sense of freedom. It's weird. The person I'm married to, this woman who once made me feel like the world could fit into her hands, she now feels like a stranger I happen to share groceries and utility bills with. The other night, I caught myself wondering what she thinks when she looks at me now. Does she still see the man she tried to undercut? Does she wonder if I know more than I let on? Or does she just see a placeholder? Someone she thinks she can keep around long enough to put the pieces of her life back together? She started baking. Random, out of nowhere baking. Cookies, banana bread, weird vegan muffins she never used to touch. I think it's her way of performing healing. Like if she creates enough warmth in the kitchen, it'll thaw the ice that's settled between us. One evening, she handed me a plate of double chocolate chip cookies and smiled like we were in a rom-com from the early 2000s. I said, thanks, and walked away with them. I didn't even eat one. I fed them to Lloyd later that night. The man I was 2 years ago would have found that gesture sweet. The man I am now just sees it as damage control. Because the truth is, I don't trust anything that comes out of her mouth anymore. Not even the small, nice things. Maybe especially not the small, nice things. People always talk about infidelity in absolutes. If someone cheats, they're done. Once a cheater, always a cheater. But it's not that clean. Not when you're deep in it. Not when the betrayal comes wrapped in strategy, not lust. It wasn't about intercourse. It was about control. She wanted to test if she could bend my world, impair it from within, and still walk away unscathed. The part that breaks me a little? She almost did. If Mason hadn't promoted me anyway, if I hadn't caught that moment between them, if I hadn't hired someone to follow her, she would have kept going. She would have watched me fall and smiled through it, baking cookies to distract from the ashes. I still haven't decided what to do next. I have a meeting with a divorce attorney next week. Just an exploratory one. No paperwork yet. I haven't told her. I don't think I need to yet. A few of my closest friends have started to notice things that feel off. One of them, Ruben, pulled me aside after our usual Thursday night poker game. You good? He asked, looking at me the way only a friend who's known you since your early 20s can. Just tired, I said. He nodded, like he didn't believe me, but didn't push. And I appreciated that more than he'll ever know. Because I'm not ready to talk yet. Not with them. Not with anyone. Except here. Now. To all of you strangers who don't owe me sympathy or fake optimism. Just ears. Or, well, eyes. Thanks for listening. The more I think about it, the more I realize how much of my marriage had become performance art. Not just for outsiders. For us, too. Two people walking through scenes they memorized long ago, reciting lines like actors in a play neither of us auditioned for. Wake up. Coffee. Casual chatter. Work. Dinner. Scroll. Sleep. Somewhere in all of that, we stopped being married and just started looking like we were. And yet, despite everything I know, despite the things I've seen with my own eyes, there's a part of me that still hesitates. It's stupid. It's soft. But it's there. When she sits down beside me and casually slips her hand on my arm, I don't pull away. I don't know why. I'm not moved by it. I don't feel warmth. But I don't move. Like I'm waiting to see if she notices the silence and asks the right question. She never does. Or when she brings up something we did years ago. Remember that time we got rained out at Wrigley and just sat in the bleachers laughing like idiots? I'll nod. Smile. Even though what I really remember is how she spent the whole train ride home talking about how she'd outgrown nights like that. The Sierra I married wouldn't have tried to hamper me. But maybe I didn't really know her back then, either. She started asking more questions lately. Probing ones. Nothing outright suspicious, but I can tell her instincts are kicking in. Did you ever talk to Mason after that night? Do you think you got the promotion just because you earned it? Or maybe he felt guilty. Or the one that almost made me laugh. Do you ever worry you're too good at staying calm? She's feeling the imbalance now. The shift. She thought she held the cards. But now she can't read my face the way she used to, and that terrifies her. Good. Let her feel it. Let her feel the disorientation I lived in for years, walking on eggshells, wondering if I was doing enough, being enough, earning my place beside her. Let her sit in the unknown for a while. I think what's kept me from blowing everything up is how quiet her downfall has been. She didn't explode. She didn't rage or cry or scream. She's just unraveling, thread by thread. A few nights ago, I found her in the office, sitting on the floor surrounded by papers. Old resumes, job listings, a stack of rejection emails printed out like some physical weight she needed to confront. I thought I was smarter than this, she said, voice flat. I always used to be the one people wanted. I didn't respond. She looked up at me. Did I mess everything up, Harlan? And there it was. A rare, flickering moment of self-awareness. Or maybe just desperation. I couldn't tell. I wanted to say yes. God, I wanted to. But instead, I stood in the doorway and said, that's something you'll have to figure out on your own. Then I turned off the hallway light and went to bed. She hasn't gone back to work, obviously. And there's no real path forward for her at her old company. The exit was quiet, but thorough. Whatever bridges she had left were soaked in gasoline, and someone struck the match. She spends her days consulting, which is code for sending a few emails, taking long walks, and reorganizing the spice rack. I go to work, keep my head down, and build. Not just in my career, but in my life. My future. I've been putting money in a new account. In my name only. I've talked to a realtor friend about listings in Lincoln Square. Just browsing. Just ideas. But the foundation is forming. Some nights I look at her and wonder how I'll tell her it's over. How do you say, I knew before you told me. I watched you destroy something, and I let you. Just to see what you'd do next. How do you say, I let you walk right into your own disaster because I needed to know if you'd ever look back? There's a part of me that regrets not confronting her earlier. Not just because I could have spared myself some time, but because maybe, just maybe, she would have shown some honesty if I'd caught her off guard. Instead, she revealed her betrayal like it was a trump card. Like I'd fold. But I didn't fold. I waited. I played the long game. And now she's sitting at a table with no more moves left. At least, none I can see. The other day, she asked if I wanted to go away for a weekend. Somewhere quiet, she said. Just us. Like before. Like before. What a loaded phrase. Before the lies. Before the manipulation. Before I started living with a stranger who wore my wife's face. I told her I'd think about it. And then I didn't bring it up again. Because the version of before she wants to return to, it doesn't exist. And the version of me that would have said yes, he's long gone. A week after she suggested the weekend getaway, I made an appointment with the divorce attorney. No more hypothetical chats or exploratory meetings. This time, I brought documentation, bank statements, the PI report, a timeline, even copies of her texts with Mason that I discreetly forwarded to my private email. My attorney, Lisa, was sharp, efficient, no nonsense. After going through everything, she sat back and said, you've got leverage. A lot of it. She's going to want to settle quietly, especially if you don't go public. That's all I needed to hear. I didn't want drama. I wanted control. The same control Sierra tried to take from me when she climbed into bed with my boss and tried to rewrite my future behind my back. Now it was my turn to hold the pen. That night, I came home to find her making dinner, some elaborate pasta dish she saw on TikTok. She greeted me like everything was fine, like she hadn't blown our life apart. I was thinking we could book something in Michigan, she said, tossing garlic into a pan. Maybe a cabin on the lake? I nodded casually and poured myself a glass of wine. Took a sip. Waited. Then I said, actually, I had a different plan in mind. She turned, eyebrows raised. Oh, I think we should separate. The words hit the room like a slow-moving grenade. She blinked. Twice. The garlic sizzled behind her like nothing had changed. Excuse me. I've already spoken to an attorney. I'm filing next week. She stared at me, mouth half open, as if the idea had never occurred to her. As if the woman who confessed to sleeping with my boss and had systematically tried to tank my career couldn't possibly be held accountable for any of it. I don't understand, she said. We've been doing better. No, I said quietly. You've been trying to pretend it never happened. That's not better. She started pacing. You can't be serious, Harlan. You're really going to throw away 8 years over one mistake. You didn't just cheat, I said, setting the wine glass down. You tried to control the outcome of my life. You saw me climbing, and you tried to pull me down. And even after you failed, you didn't apologize. You confessed like it was a game, like you were proud of it. She stood still now, breathing hard. Her eyes were glassy, but no tears fell. She wasn't sad. She was cornered. You can't prove anything, she said, her voice low. That's when I reached into my bag, pulled out a manila envelope, and slid it across the kitchen counter. She opened it. She saw the photos, the receipts, the emails, and I saw it, the flicker, that 1-second collapse where everything in her face changed. The confident, strategic mask dropped, and underneath it was just panic. She didn't ask how I got it. She didn't say anything at all for a full minute. Then, she whispered, you've been planning this. Yes, I said, just like you planned dinner with my boss. I just did it better. The next month was a blur of paperwork, emails, and logistical untangling. But she didn't fight. Not really. She tried at first, tried to scare me with talk about spousal support and community property, but my lawyer had receipts. And Sierra knew that if this got ugly, I had more than enough to make sure her professional reputation would never recover. So she folded. She gave up her claim to the condo, took her personal savings, and moved into a rental in Lakeview. She asked to keep Lloyd, our dog, but I refused. That was my line. He'd been mine from before we even met, and I wasn't letting her take him, too. We didn't speak much, just enough to sign things and pass along final bills. 6 months later, I was living in a new place. A brownstone in Lincoln Square with actual sunlight in the mornings and neighbors who said hello. I turned the second bedroom into a reading room, something I'd wanted for years but never had space for because Sierra didn't like clutter. Lloyd adapted fast. He seemed lighter, freer, like me. One morning, while sipping coffee on my stoop, I got a text from a former coworker. "You hear about Mason? His wife filed for divorce. He's being sued by the board for misusing company funds. Looks like the fallout finally hit." I didn't reply. I just smiled into my mug. I didn't need to lift a finger. The rot they built together had finally consumed them both. Sierra, last I heard, was freelancing, trying to rebrand, spinning her exit as a conscious pivot to passion projects. She'd changed her LinkedIn bio 3 times in 2 months. The people who knew the truth had quietly distanced themselves. No one said anything outright. No gossip. Just the soft exile of someone whose reputation had caught up to them. I never posted about any of this online. Never aired it out to friends or family. I didn't need revenge in the way movies or petty internet stories frame it. My revenge was this: silence, stability, freedom. She built her identity on perception, on being the one in control, the one untouchable. And now she lives in a 1-bedroom apartment with no job, no influence, and no one left to manipulate. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. I thrived. Not because I wanted to rub it in her face, but because I finally stopped building around someone who only wanted to see me stay small. The truth is, you don't always need to scream to win. Sometimes, the quietest exit is the loudest victory.